So in this video, as I mentioned previously, I want to cover using SpeedTree to create something like this, a small plant. I'll also talk about exporting the geometry so we can use it within Houdini. Now this is a slightly higher poly version than we will export. As you can see, it's around 327,000, even without these smaller branches. It's still quite high, a little too high. So what we will do is recreate this, but we'll make sure that it's a little lighter for our scene. Again, we want to try and keep it to around the 50 to 100,000 mark, but as low as possible preferably. If we zoom in, it's okay, it holds up quite well up to maybe this distance, then it starts to fall apart a little, and that's okay, because we will only see it from, I can't even zoom out far enough, from like smaller than this. So to have it around the 100,000 poly mark is still probably too high. Now, the reason that I'm choosing Heather is because in this scene that I am creating, it's within Scotland. A lot of the hills that we see are actually covered in this stuff. Now, we didn't see it in the final image because this is during summer, so all these flowers have bloomed. And in more wintry environments, you don't tend to see the heather so strong like this. But it is a beautiful plant, and it's also quite an interesting one to try and create. So, let me just move this off to one side. Save it for now. And I will open up a new version of SpeedTree. Okay, so again, I like to work particularly to scale, or as to scale as possible. So I want to make sure that these guys are quite small. If I dropped in a trunk as a base again, plug this in. These heathers only grow to like 2 or 3 feet. So let me just add this in. Oh, sorry. Spine to 2. And change the shape. And change the skin. So this is very small. A bit bigger than this. Okay, 0.02. And I will start to generate some of these branches. Now, I don't want a split. Oh, sorry. I don't want this at 2. I wanted this at 1. And I'm happy to leave this on absolute for now. The initial stock is right in the center, so you won't be able to see it anyway. And I'll go to segments, and we may as well make sure that we are taking this into account as we go this time, rather than doing it again at the end. So we'll just reduce these. A little more here. That's fine. I'll turn it back to standard view and start to add in some branches. So again, we'll go with the big branches and take a quick look at the reference. If we look at a single branch of heather, we see a very distinctive branching. So we have this main branch, a couple of branches that come off. At the lower edges, we have these small little branch-like structures that have very tightly closed leaves on them. And then near the top, we have these little flowers that start to appear. Now, we could, in fact, create this geometry and import it and scatter it on the mesh. If I was getting any closer than, say, mid-distance, I would definitely do this. Or I would create the geometry and instance it to the mesh within Houdini. but for the purposes of large scale environments where we don't actually get close to anything, there is no need for this, and it's just a waste of geometry. So this is what I'll be trying to create for each structure before we multiply it. Otherwise it will become unnecessarily heavy too early. Cool. So we have some branches. We will just work with one for now if we can. Now, the way these branches work is they start straight and then turn up. Again, we have two ways to do this. We mentioned previously we can adjust the gravity to bend it up. And we also mentioned that we have the ancestor option, which also lifts it up towards the direction of the previous node. I'll use gravity for now, as that's what we have been using. Okay, and everything is getting a little thin. Let me just make sure this is set to 1. And again, duplicate this. And this time, since gravity pulls us down, ancestor might be a better option here, as we want it to follow the direction here, not just up and down. So let me just add ancestor a little bit more in the spine tab. Something small. Now it may not have enough segments to actually achieve the bend that I'm looking for, so I'll just crank this up a little bit. Maybe even to 2, that's fine. And now I can see the bend. I think I'll reduce the ancestor a little more. And take it down at the top. And change the start angle just to lift it out a little more. So I am looking for this type of shape here. Okay, now the other characteristic is we have the flowers at the top, and then the smaller, greener branches at the bottom. So we will just make 2 branch nodes for this. One for the top, one for the bottom. And change them using the first and the last option. So I'll just copy and paste this. Again, I want to just quickly go through and make sure I have disabled welding. And I will also disable the percentage of parent randomization to make sure that the base never gets any thicker than the previous branch here. Everything is getting a little thin, but we can thicken it up later. Okay, now for these branches, I want them to start at the base. So I'll just reduce this to 0. Oh, maybe a bit too small. And reduce the last to something like 0.5. Now the branches are getting a little thin, so let me just thicken this up before we go on. And I want to change these branches from interval to proportional steps. And we'll crank up the per step count to something like 5. Increase the offset. And reduce the spine here. I also don't need the ancestor on this option. And I can also remove the gravity. Okay, now we want the last a bit lower. It's still a bit high at the moment, maybe something around here. I want to reduce the radius and increase the amount. Okay, now we can generate some leaves on top of these guys to create the little branches we get at the base. We might need to just angle them up a little more. That's better. And I also want to duplicate these. And this time make the start and the end from the tip to the middle. So let me change this to 1 and lift this up so the branches start halfway. Now we can control the difference between the base and the tip. I'll add some more segments here. It's still a little sharp. And reduce the noise. These guys also look a little sharp. That's better. Now, don't worry about this looking a little strange. We can fix this soon. But for now, let's add in the leaves. So I will right click and add a new leaf mesh. And drag and drop this onto, let's just go with this one for now. It's obviously far too big. Let me just reduce this to something quite small, 0.03 or so. And create a new mesh. I'll call this heather leaf. I think to try and match the reference a little better, perhaps I'll make these triangular shaped as they come into these little spikes at the tip. So let me just remove this guy, move this over, and make these a bit smaller. Now, as this is going to be a quad, I think I'll just add this little base here and fill it up with the low, medium and high. Make a new material. Again, heather leaf. And choose heather leaf and apply this. Now these guys are very small. I also want to make sure they're two-sided so we can see both sides. In fact, this is probably fine. We just need a lot more. And we also need to point them in the direction of the branch. Still a little too big. Cool. Now, I would keep it at this size if I was trying to create something from mid-distance, but since we won't get anywhere near this, there's no need for it to be so small. So let's just... Cool. And I'll also change this orientation. There, that's fine. I mean, these guys are just visual noise in the final image. There is no need for them to be so complicated. I'll just create a new leaf mesh, as now I want to create the flowers. So add new. And I'll do the same. Something like this. But I'll make them a square. And give a little tip. Nice. I'll copy and paste these. and replace the mesh. Although first I need to make the heather flower material. Again, I would adjust this if this was something that we saw close, but we can leave it for now. As mentioned earlier, I want to come in and increase this radius some. Okay, so I just want to add some color so we can differentiate some of these shapes. We can do this just by clicking on the color here. Now, if we wanted to, we could import a map, but for the moment, let's just use the color. Oh, sorry, we're on the flower. Let me just make this pink. And make the leaf green. So at the moment, you might be wondering about something like variation throughout these plants, and that is something that I prefer to control within Houdini, as we have, a lot more options there. I'm happy just to export this without any color or without any materials, and just affect this within Houdini. So all we need now is a lot more of these guys, a lot more branches. So I'll just go to the branches and boost them up. Starting to get a nice shape. Let me just reduce the first so it comes closer to the base. That's better. And also increase how many of these branches we have. Maybe something like 10. And again, reduce the base. And I'll also increase the spread. So I do want some more of these guys. Just boost this up some more. Okay. And also I want to make it so that these branches at the bottom come out a bit straighter and then go smaller at the top. So let me just go to these branches and change the start angle fall off. So I'll just increase it for now and make sure it comes further up at the top. And do the same with the gravity. So a bit less at the bottom. Okay, so in our reference, the petals actually get a little smaller towards the top. So let's do that too. If we go to the size function here, we can shrink them nearer the top. Nice. And I just want to add a lot more of these branches here. Increase the count to 6. Again, that adds more on the radius. Now, at the moment, we are at 314,000, so we need to get this down some. Let's change this to quads first. And then start to reduce the amount of branches, but increase the size of the twigs. Sorry, increase the size of the leaves. I'll also reduce the amount of flowers here at the top. We're at 126. Let's just keep going. And begin to reduce the segments here as we have 33,000 just on these branches. Now again, we won't export these branches. We may as well make sure that they are efficient. Okay, so we have the trunk and the big branches, and then we have the leaf meshes. So we are at about 48,000, and this is fine. From the distance that we see these guys at, this is an acceptable amount of polygons. Okay, so it's not quite the high poly version that we have here that looks closer to the reference and that we can get much closer to, but it is a worthy stand-in for the distance at which we see this at. And we will take a look at the exporting of the mesh itself. Now it's pretty straightforward to get what we need. We just have to select the 3 branches that we want. File, export mesh, export selected as mesh. We choose where we want it to go. In this case, let's go to plants. I'll make a new folder. I'll call this header low to branches. Everything is already set up, so we don't need to touch any of this. We can just press OK. And then we get the mesh that we need for the base. And then we would select either one or all of the leaves, depending on whether or not you want to contain these all within the same mesh. I don't, so I will export this as the branches. Okay, I'll need to fix that. Leaves. And flowers. Rename this. And that's all we need to do. Now, I wanted to show a couple of other very cool things within SpeedTree that you can play about with and, try out if you want. The first thing is the seasons, and this is pretty cool. If you show dropped leaves and scrub through the timeline here, you'll see that as we get to autumn, the leaves start to fall. And if we wanted to create any really quick winter trees, this would be the way to do it. We can also bring in meshes and have these leaves sit around the mesh. So that's cool. Let me just switch this back off. The second one is the animation or the wind effects. Now, if we double click on this guy, we can get into the wind wizard and we can enable the wind. And within SpeedTree, the wind wizard is a really good way to get some very cheap and easy animation. Now, we don't get the same control that we do within Houdini, but if you are not overly critical, you can get something that is more than usable straight from SpeedTree. So on the sliders here, we have the overall strength. We can increase that. We have the variation within that. And then we also have the gust frequency or the turbulence, I guess. Now, if we wanted to export this, instead of exporting the geometry as an OBJ, we would export this as an FBX. So export selected as mesh, branches animated, select FBX or Alembic. So here we can choose how long it is, the frames per second, and whether or not we want the gusting to be enabled. And we would just press OK, and this would export a sequence. Nice, so that's all I wanted to cover in the final video. Just to reiterate, it's important that we export the geometry like this with the mesh as one and the leaves as another mesh, as this helps the shading process within Houdini and Arnold become a little bit smoother. Nice, so for the assignment this week, it's about making some more trees, and we will go over that in the next video. Thank you.